Good evening. I hope you feel well. Better? Yes, we had a good lunch today, so we feel good. I want to make a short repetition of what we have learned until now, and then we'll dig deeper into our study. We have learned until now that the human being is composed on two things, or two different items. The one is he has a spirit, and the other one he has a body. And both together make the soul. And we saw that the soul is it's too loud, I don't hear it. Okay. And so I was hearing myself. So maybe I just draw that once again. So here on the cortex level, the body starts. Yes. And here we have our spirit. And they together make the soul. And here life is going on. Here we see, feel, and here we think and take decisions. So this is the place where we live. This is the place where everything starts and everything comes back. And we have seen that love is the need of whom? Of the Spirit. Yes? Love with all its contents is the need of the Spirit. And since the Spirit lives from love and the body is dependent for life from the Spirit makes that to the body by thoughts. And those thoughts make for the body the electricity, and that electricity runs the body. Okay. That electricity runs the body. So we saw that last night there is a problem in the spirit. He has a problem how to satisfy his need for love. And you still remember what is his main disaster, his main deception from last night? What is he thinking? Who's responsible that he should feel good? Pardon? But what is his deception? He thinks that others are responsible for his well-being. When the life of others do not go well, he thinks he has a problem and an issue. And whenever he gets into that issue, he makes the body sick. It might last for a time until the body gets sick, but certainly the first reaction of the body is the emotions. How many types of emotions do we have? Only 2 times. Yes, or the 2 kinds of emotions. It's the positive emotions that makes us feel good, and it's the negative emotion that feels bad. And so we have the first thing that comes when we think wrong, that we have a negative emotion. And that emotion should already tell us that we are wrong in what we think. But we go on because we don't consider the emotion as a like a mirror of what we thought in our hearts. And we continue because, we have been betrayed, we have been lied, some people have done something unto us, and we continue in that thinking, and our emotions get worse, and then they become bad feelings in the way of pain or other diseases. So this is the process, because the Spirit thinks that others are responsible for his satisfaction. He expects others to love him, to respect him, to bow down before him. And then he feels good. And as long as that happens, he does not have any stress. But when that does not happen anymore, he gets into stress. And when he gets into stress, his body gets under pressure. And then his body is showing up the symptom of a spirit that is not in harmony. So, when I first started to talk with my patients, I realized that their body sickness was the result of what they were going through in life. And so I said, why? Until I found and saw that this is the error, that they were thinking that others are responsible for their needs. And I came to the understanding that the idea to be loved is a deceptive idea, because it brings you into a very difficult situation. But I didn't understand where was the root of it. Why do people think that they have a need that cannot even be explained, that it can work? And so, about at the end of 2007, I discovered the root of the problem. And I discovered the root of the problem not necessarily searching it, but by searching you get to the root of it. And by the end of 2007, I realized something that changed all my view that I had until then about humanity. So, what do you think? Is diabetes and heart disease and hypertension or cancer coming from different causes, from the same cause? Now you say now the same cause, but which is that same cause? I was thinking that all diseases have different causes. And so I put the patient that had the same disease in groups. Yes? Because I want to see in the group with the tinnitus, what is the common denominator? Then I took the group with the dizziness, and I searched for the common denominator. And I took the group of the throat diseases, and I searched for the common denominator. And it was interesting that on their experience level, I found that they had common denominator. You know, when you have a tinnitus, you always have a relationship issue. When you are dizzy, you have a fight. When you have throat problems, you have fear. So those are things that are on the superficial thing that I saw. And I was happy about it. But at the end of 2007, I realized that on thought level, which I was searching to find out what was the problem, on thought level, all the groups had the same root. That is, there was one thought that all the groups had in common. And that was the bottom thought of every problem they had. So here in this on the superficial level, you see here events, different events. Yes? How many events can we have? How many problems are there existing? A bunch of billions of problems, as much as humans are. But it doesn't matter which problem you have. When you have a problem, it always comes from one thought. And that's the same thought in every human being. And that was a great discovery for me. That I can trace back whatever story you tell me as a negative story, they all have just one root, and it's one thought that is common to everyone. And I could not believe it. You see, I'm a hard believer. I'm a doubter by nature. So I said, this cannot be. If all negative events have their root in one thought, how many problems do we have? Just one. Well, that would simplify my work, would it? And so, of course, after 4 months, I was convinced. You see, what convinced me was that I took all the stories, and even before the people finished their stories, I said, oh, this story ends up in this thought. This story ends up in this thought. And then my son brought home a sheet of a paper where were written 25 questions from a psychological inquiry. I mean, where they want to test you if you have a danger of getting some disorders. And those 25 questions had the same thought they were asking from, only on different events. And I was thinking, did they realize that they put 25 times the same question? Or they're just not realizing that you put 25 questions and you're asking always the same thing in every kind that question. But when I saw it, that they were asking every time the same, I say, okay, there is not more than that thought. And so I could get rid of my groups. I just had then the 4 questions. You still remember the 4 questions? Inheritance, accidents, food, and the heart, the mind, the thoughts. Yes? And when I could rule out the 3, 4 before, then I said, okay, let's see what is the thought life of that person. And when I find that thought, then you're for sure that's the cause. And when you see it's related even in time. So I will tell you the thought a little bit later, just to keep you alert, not thinking on that thought. When I discovered that thought, for me, humanity became like a zoom. I got a zoom closer to the human being. You see, we saw that we have a soul, and everything starts from the soul, where the spirit and the body works together. And now I discovered the heart. So if this is the human body, here's a big thing. And this is the cortex, and I put only one here. And here all nerve starts. And then up here we have our spirit. I do not know exactly if this is the case. You see, this nervous cells here, this Purkinje cells, we have about 30 billions in one cortex, in one side. 30 billions, is that a word? And each cell has 400,000 connections to another cell in the cortex. Okay? And they can make synapses, they can make connections. And so imagine if each cell can have 400,000 connections to another cell, they could be so ordered that from only one cell, every nervous impulse gets down into the body. because just one cell takes it over, and then the connections, the network in between, just leads it exactly where it has to go. And if it is so, I don't know, I have no laboratory to study that, but what I know for sure, that when the Spirit gives his input to make the electricity, when he takes the decision, he has only one way to do that. Only one thought to put the body into action. And when I discovered that thought, I got to understand the subconscious, or what we call heart. You know what's funny or what's nice in the heart? We will speak about that later. But let's take, why do we have it here called the heart? When we go in this next hours to understand the law of life, because that's what we want to understand in the end, we will understand something very beautiful. So how is life made on? And we take the physical heart first as an example. So how is the physical heart functioning? Or let's say this. Where do all blood vessels have their origin? In the heart. They leave from the heart, yes? And they go into the body. And where do they have their end? It's also in the heart. So the law of life is a circle. And we will see that, and I will repeat this, and we'll make the understanding. Everything starts from a point, and it makes a big circle. Trillions of cells are fed by that circle, and then it comes back to the same place where it all starts again. So the heart, the spiritual heart, where we take our decision, is the place where everything in us starts and where everything in us returns to. And that's a nice thing to know, where things start. Because if we have the starting point, of course we see the end. The end is the disease, we see the dysfunction, we see it, but what we miss in medicine is, where does it start from? And finding out this thought, I started to find out how the heart functions. Where is the starting point? And I tell you, as far as I know right now, if everything in the heart starts correct, the whole reaction of that electricity in the body is correct. You never can have a damage if in your heart you give the right impulse. If there at the beginning you think and judge correct, you would never have a fear of a disease that comes from your own thinking. And that's most of our diseases, so we would be free of those diseases that most people have, because they don't know their heart and they cannot control it. So discovering the heart, discovering that the spirit has only one thought, that has two values, to put in the body into action, I was very happy, and since then my main focus on life is the heart. You see, when you come to me and you tell me that you have a arthritis or a dizziness, then I look to your heart. It's not this heart here, it's not the pump. It's the spiritual heart, where the spirit starts processing everything that happens in you and then goes down into your body. That's the spiritual heart. There is where I look to, because from there the issue of life is. You know, when I discovered the heart first, of course, I said, is this discovery mine or is it written in the Bible? What do you think? It's written in the Bible. You know where? It's everywhere. But you don't see it if you don't know about what it's talking about. So let's look a little bit closer to what I found out that thought is and how the heart, how the Bible calls it, and the science of conscious functions. So this is the conscious part, and this is the subconscious. And you must know that every decision that we take has a conscious and a subconscious part. We make the decision consciously, but we don't know how we make the decision because that works subconsciously. But you never can take a decision without being conscious. At least so conscious that you take a decision. Okay? So there must be always, it's a co-working between the conscious and the subconscious. And I will have one day all the steps lined up, I hope perfectly, how it works, you know, going up and down between the conscious and the subconscious in the different steps until we take a decision. So in the conscious, we have that what I call our will. And the will is a combination of the body and the spirit. It's like I call it the from the computer, it is the screen. How much can you work on the computer without a screen? Can you? You cannot work on the computer without a screen. This is why everything that comes to us consciously. You see, when you have a hunger, we talked about hunger. When you have a hunger, does that become conscious to you? Yes or no? Yes. So here's the hunger. But now, how do you take the decision to satisfy that hunger? You take that decision subconsciously. You're not aware how you do it. But you do it because consciously you are hungry. So every decision, every information that comes to us must penetrate the consciousness, must come into the consciousness. So if it is hunger, if it is tiredness, if it is cold or sweat, or whatever we feel, it must become conscious before we must work on it to take a decision of it. And even our need for our spiritual needs, and I say that every personality has a spiritual need that drives him on. And with me it is harmony. Everything I see through the eyes of harmony. Yes? Harmony people are people that please others because they want from them the harmony. Yes, they cannot stand disharmony. And whenever they are in disharmony, they have to do everything they can to restore that harmony so that they might be well. So, but I don't have only harmony, I also need liberty, I need truth, I need righteousness, I need control, and I need faithfulness. So when someone is unfaithful to you, you must become conscious of that, like we talked last night, yes? And that information doesn't come to your heart. That information first comes to your consciousness, but now the processing of the information goes subconsciously. And this is what we have to know, how it works, because then we can understand ourselves. Because in the moment you hear a news that someone betrayed you, that comes to your consciousness, to your will, but it's not controlled by your will, is it? You just, immediately you feel an emotion, immediately you have a reaction, and it's not a willful reaction, it's an unwillful reaction, because you see, I made a commitment to God that I will never get angry again. And I did this about 10 and a half years ago. What do you think? Did I solve my... Do I still get angry? Unfortunately. It's much better. There are many things that don't make me angry anymore, because I learned them. You will see, the one thought that makes us angry. But there are still deceptions in my heart that are too fast until they get to my conscience that I'm wrong. Because then only I have a decision when it comes conscious that I'm wrong, I have to do something and change something. So in the will, in the consciousness, we are all different. Here is our temperament, but that is just the output of it. But in our heart, in our subconscious, we are all the same. That is, we are all functioning after the same manner. And the green you have seen until now is the body, is biology. Yes, that's why it's green. And in the subconscious, we said in the heart, we must do the spirit must make the electricity. And electricity you can make only between two poles. That's the negative and the positive. Yes? And this is the zero line. Yeah? And you know, to make electricity, you have to move an electron so that it becomes an electrical impulse. And the spirit does that through one thought, the plus and the negative, but it's one thought with two sides. So here is the spirit, this is me, and he has one thought for the negative and one thought for the positive. And I discovered the negative one, because people don't come for me with positive things, do they? I don't come to the physician for positive events. And I discovered this negative thought, which underlies or is at the bottom or the root of every negative thing, and that is simply the thought of loss. What I discovered here was loss. You can come to me with any problem, and I know already where it ends or where it starts. It is in the thought of loss. And then 4 months later, I discovered the opposite thought of loss. What is it? Gain. Do people come to doctors because they have gain? Never. Never. So, you must know this. Whenever something conscious comes to you, like the information you're hungry, in your subconscious, you must process that to the end. Is eating now gain or is eating loss? And if eating is gain in that moment, you have a yes. And then you eat. But if the hunger comes during you run a marathon, or the hunger comes during you are very busy to do something, what do you say to the hunger? You say no, because then the hunger is a loss. When we were young, every springtime we went out to make a house in the garden. And we were living on a steep hill, and my grandma could not come up to get us. So when we were so busy working to do that house, half in the ground and with, all the woods we cut and put there, she could call us, come eat, come eat, no one will come. We would rather die. We had to finish our work. Can you understand it? Yes. Because that was so important for us, and it was a loss coming down to eat. So, very simple. Man has only two decisions. It's yes and no. There is not much more. But before the yes and the no is done, you must put every event, if it's a hearing information, a seeing information, a smelling, a tasting information, a feeling information, either in one or the other, in gain or in loss. When you put it in gain, you say yes. When you put it in loss, you say no. And for this mechanism, you have no choice. God made it so. The yes is always bound to gain, and the no is always bound to loss. You can never say yes to loss. You cannot say, or you might say no to gain, but even that's very hard. You must be deceived. You must say yes to gain, and you must say no to loss. Because you cannot go beyond the zero. That's no electricity there, you know that? It's like in the computer. It's 1 and 0. It's electricity and no electricity. So we have no choice. We need to stay in between the gain. We have to gain and avoid loss. That's how we were made. And it's not a choice. That's mechanic. That's the mechanism how it was made. So we hear the news. My husband betrayed me, or my wife. And where do I put that news? I have to put it in gain or loss, or neither gain nor loss. And where do you put it? You put it in a loss. And that would not be even wrong. It's a loss when he is unfaithful. It just, is it your loss or his? And you take it as your loss. So the only thing that makes us sick is not loss itself, but because you say it is personal. It's a personal loss that kills you. And personal loss means that what you lose is yours, yes? And we will see that this is the main deception that is, the end of the equation is that we consider loss as personal. But let's come back. When I first discovered that all decisions are just yes and no, and they are all between gain and loss, I said, if our heart is functioning like this, then this must be written in the Bible. Now, could you tell me any Bible verse where that is written exactly in this way that it functions? Could you? But I bet you have read it. But when you read it, you didn't recognize it. But when I prayed and said, Lord, I need to know if this is what I observed in humanity is the truth, then it must be written for long in the Bible. It cannot be that I discover something for health after 6,000 years of earth history, and it is so important, it would save our lives, and it is not written in the Bible. And you know where I was brought after I prayed, I was brought to the Sermon on the Mount. And you know who tells the Sermon on the Mount? Who is Jesus? Who made us? He made us. Did you know how he made us? Did you know how humanity functions? It says that, well, yes, he spoke, but he also, he made it, I mean, he thought before he spoke, and he thought, and he did something that was thought of. Yes? It was not something that he didn't think about. So the Creator becomes man, and in John it says that he knew everything that is in man. Does he? He knows everything that is in man. Because he knew the functions. Jesus were completely, he knew humanity. And I just saw it when I came to the Sermon on the Mount. And the Sermon on the Mount is a fantastic place, and I will maybe we'll read it. Let's see if I can do that here. Let's go to Matthew 6, starting from verse 19. Let's do this a little bit bigger. That good, so? Can you read it? So, it says here, I have a young literal translation, maybe I take King James Version. It says, "Lay not up for yourself treasures upon earth, where moth and rust does corrupt, and where thieves break through and steal. But lay up for yourself treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust does corrupt, and where thieves do not break through nor steal. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be." So what is the need of the heart? What is the need of the heart? A treasure. The need of the heart is a treasure. And what is a treasure? Gain or loss? Gain. So we were made to have what? Gain. We were made to have a treasure. Tell me, there is only one reason why we should have not an earthly treasure, and why we should lay up a heavenly treasure. What is the only reason? What is it? Because you can lose it. And you know, when people come to me and are sick, you know why they are sick? They lost their treasure. That's a subconscious treasure. They lost something they want to keep, because they think it's the treasure of their life. Instead of keeping it, I mean, they cannot keep it, so they lost it, and by having it lost, they get into trouble. Can you understand? There is only one reason why we should have no earthly treasure. Because we can lose it. And when you lose your treasure, what happens with your heart? What happens with your heart? Does it have a support? When the treasure is the means of life for the heart, when the treasure is gone, you die together with your treasure. Because we can go into Solomon's study, because we have this possibility here. Let's do it. We go into Proverbs 4, and up here. "My son, attend to my words, and incline thine ear unto my sayings. Let them not depart from thine eyes. Keep them in the midst of thine heart. For they are life unto those that find them, and health to what? To all their flesh, that is their bodies. Keep thy heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. So is that plain? Out of the heart are the issues of life. And if we would know that, we would know that when the treasure of the heart is gone, your life is gone also. So, when I saw it in the Bible, and since then I see it everywhere, there is a whole, who wrote most about the heart? It's Jesus. In all his teachings, when you will understand the heart at the end of this week, you will see that the teachings of Jesus almost exclusively speak about the heart of man, of that part that is subconscious to us. Because he speaks a lot of gain and loss, does he? What does he say? He who wants to keep his life will lose it, and he who loses it will gain. He gives it, he gains it. And you will see that he knew exactly what he was saying. So, but there is a whole, I call it a doctoral dissertation about the heart in the Bible. What do you think, who might have written his doctoral dissertation in the Bible about the heart? Who was the author of it? Well, Jesus spoke about it, but who did the whole dissertation? It's Solomon. Solomon. You know where? In Ecclesiastes. Ecclesiastes, if you want to study the heart of man, then study Ecclesiastes. And after I understood the heart, I'm studying right now again Ecclesiastes, because you see Solomon was a wise man. And he describes in this whole 12 chapters the heart of man in a very beautiful way. And he describes it from the negative side. He does not describe it from the right side. He describes the deception of the heart. Mainly, he just at the end comes and shows the real side of the heart, that where the truth should be. So the heart is the most interesting subject, because it's the place where everything in our life starts. And when Jesus says that the heart needs a treasure, and when he says there where your treasure is, your heart is, then he must know what he said, does he? There is only one reason why she should have not an earthly treasure, and that is you can lose it. The treasure must be eternal, and how will your life then be? Eternal. That's a very easy equation. You see, the rich young ruler, he came to Christ. We'll see his life a little bit later on. He came to Christ, and Christ said, sell everything you have and give to the poor. For which reason? That you might have a heavenly treasure, and come and follow me. So Jesus says, put all you have in the heavenly bank. There it will be safe. Why did he not do it? Because of the deception of his heart, and we will come back and see that deception. So, but the mechanism is so, and it is set by God. The Creator has said it to us. We must go for gain. That's an obligation. It's not a deception to go for gain. You know that? It's not a deception to go for gain. It's just for an eternal or a earthly and a perishing. You see, do you think I came here for gain or for loss? Physical gain or a gain that I can lose. No. I want to have a gain that is eternal. And you work for that. Then everything you do make sense to you. You know that? Because that what you do you will see out of God towards the other people is what you put your treasure up in heaven. But it's a conscious process, you know that? You want to be rich? You want to be rich? No, but you want to be rich? Yes, of course. How much do you do to get rich? It's how much motivation you have. But you see, people can be measured very easily after which treasure they run. Can they? You can just see it. Because that what you do is an evidence on what treasure you hunt to. But you need to hunt for a treasure. You every time go for a treasure. You never go for no treasure. So I want to go for a heavenly treasure that no one can take away. Then my life is how? Total safe. And Jesus says very clear, stop going after treasure, or he says, lay up for yourself treasures. He says, lay up. That's a command. So lay up treasures in heaven, then your life will be absolute secure. Because the heart needs a treasure and needs an everlasting treasure. So God made us for the gain. Now, before we come to put things into gain and loss, we must have a measurement for that. You see, you hear the news, and then before you put that news into gain and loss and then take a decision finally, it processes through a measurement. I call it the eye. And I don't call it the eye from myself. I call it the eye because Jesus calls it the eye. You know that? And you know where Jesus calls it the eye? In the Sermon on the Mount. You see, he didn't finish his talk in the Sermon on the Mount. Matthew 6. So here it is. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. The light of the body is the eye. If therefore thine eye be single, that is healthy, thy whole body shall be full of light. But if thine eye will be evil, thy whole body shall be full of darkness. If therefore the light that is in thee be darkness, how great is that darkness? No man can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will hold to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and the mammon. If the heart goes for a gain, what is the gain here? Mammon or God, and that is that where your eye is leading up to you. Is Christ speaking about the physical eye, or he just takes the physical eye for an exemplification of the eyesight of the heart? What do you think? Can this eye be evil? Can this eye be evil? Of course not. This eye, the physical eye, can never be evil. And you know that Jesus says that this evil eye is in the heart? Let's do that small study, because we are here in Mark 7. And it says here in verse 22, it says, or let's read from 21, for from within, out of the heart of man proceed evil thoughts, adulteries, fornication, murderers, thefts, covetousness, wickedness, deceit, lasciviousness, an evil eye. Where is the evil eye? Where is it? In the heart. So Christ is speaking from a eyesight, an evil eye. And you know, he even has a medication for the evil eye. You know how that medication is? Have you ever read Revelation? Revelation 3. It says, I counsel thee to buy of me gold tried in the fire, that thou mayest be rich, and white raiment, that thou mayest be clothed, and that the shame of thy nakedness do not appear, and anoint thine eyes with eye salve, that thou mayest see. About what eye is he speaking? It's speaking about the heart. You will see that gold is faith. Faith is a heart issue. That we are clothed with good raiment is a heart issue, and that we see correct is a heart issue, not a will issue. So Jesus has something to offer for that evil eye, and I'm so glad that he has it. And we will have to see how the evil eye functions. Yes, how the evil eye functions. So, the evil eye or the good eye, the one is signal and is the truth, and the other one is the deception and the lie. And I discovered what the evil eye means. And the evil eye has that measurement, that eyesight, how you view the thing, that it brings you into gain or into loss. So let's look to it. What do we think in our heart is gain? We have only two options. It's either receive, or it's give. Giving or receiving. So, if receiving or to receive is gain, what is the opposite of it? It is not receiving. Or receive to less. Or something is taken away. From me. Those are the two things, yes, that we consider as a loss and as a gain. And if giving is the gain, what is the loss? Not give, that means keep. And if you are very aware, what's the difference between the two eyes? Which is the evil eye and which is the good eye? The black or the blue? So the black is the right eye, the single eye, and the black is the evil eye. Now what's the difference? So what's the difference between the evil eye and the single eye, the truth eye? What is the result of it? What's the difference? And I help you a little bit here because If you're not used to it, you don't see it right away. Whose action is to receive or not to receive, or receive to less, or something is taken away from you? Is it your action or the action of another one? It's somebody else's action. And giving and not giving, it's my action. So I have given by God to control myself. When God made us, He gave us a law, that's the measurement, and by that law we should govern ourselves. Say yes to the gain and no to the loss. There's no change of that. Not change possible. And so I have to have the yes and I have to have the no in my own hands. Now, here on the evil side, you lose your yes. But it doesn't matter. As long as you receive enough and your husband or wife does not betray you, and as long as the relationships run well, you're going well. It only happens when you lose something, because here when you lose something, you are obliged to say no. Can you say no when your husband betrays you? Can you say no? No. So what do you lose in your life? The capacity to say no to loss. And whenever you lose the capacity to say no to loss, you are subject to destroy yourself. Because you lose the control. It will never change that you can say yes to loss. You can never do that. Because God, when He created us, He made that very plain and simple. How much time we have, and I will do this one thought more, because it's so important. When He created Adam and Eve, they were made the same like we are. My batteries. So, this is me, and I was made for the gain, and I was made to avoid loss. Here I have a yes, and here I have a no. Very plain, is it? And God gave Adam and Eve a simple information. He said, gain is not to eat from the tree of good and evil. Yes? Not to eat. That is gain. Never touch it. And then He said also to eat from the tree of good and evil is loss. Is that clear? Thank you. Is that clear? Okay. So, if you made a man that can never say yes to loss, was Adam and Eve in any danger when God put the tree there that they should ever eat? Did He endanger them?
No.
No, of course not. There's no danger. As long as they are convinced that the one is loss and the other is gain, they cannot do it. They can never go into loss. They have a no, an absolute no for the loss. And so, if they are convinced that eating from that tree will kill them, they will never touch the tree to eat. But now the serpent comes. And you see, the serpent doesn't come and say to Eve, Eve, eat that you might die. Would he have a success? Would he? No. But he came to Eve with Eve's needs. Do you think that God made us so that we should be curious? Yes? Yes. So curiosity I hope it's the right spelling, whatever. Curiosity or knowledge. Is knowledge a need? Yes or no? Yes. Is curiosity a need? It's a good need?
Of course.
Yes. And who is more curious, men or women? There might be also men that are curious. I consider myself also curious. But it depends, where are you curious? In the business of others or in your own? And you see, we have, who made the cats? We have 2 cats home, and they have a very high sense of curiosity. Yes? When I come home, and I travel a lot, and then I come home, and they are there. When I open my suitcase, they jump into the suitcase. Why? They're curious. They are so curious, these cats. She even came the other day when I was in the garden and picking some strawberries. She was so curious to see what am I eating. And then I offered her also. She didn't take it. But she came so closely. She wanted to see what I eat. This is curious, almost like a woman. You can get close now. So, curiosity is something that is put into us by God. There's nothing wrong in curiosity. So, now the devil comes and says, Eve, do you want to be smart? Is that a temptation? Is it not a need that we want to be smart? Yes? Yes, of course. And now he comes and says, Eve, you're going to be the smartest one if you eat from the tree. This fruit has wisdom in it. And Eve says, oh no. God said we should not eat from it. And the devil says, oh no, Eve, don't believe God. He just said it so that you should not be smart enough. You will be like him. You will be like God. If you are going to eat this fruit, the knowledge will come to you home. And then he put something there, because you see, the yes, the attraction to do something for gain is big. But you know what is bigger? The avoiding of loss. That's more forcing. You might not bribe someone with money, but when you tell him, I will do you something wrong, then he might say, okay, I now surrender to do that. You see, to avoid loss is much bigger than to go to the game. So here is Eve, and the devil says, eat and you will get wise. You see, people still think when they eat some certain fruit they get wiser than others. I tell you, I'm so happy that the tree was forbidden to eat. But God needed to take a spiritual thing and put it down to a physical one to make us understand. But a physical thing, a physical fruit, can it ever make you wise?
It is vegan.
Well, it's vegan, and it's vegan is good, but can it make you wise? No, of course not. Wisdom is only where? Who has wisdom? God. So if you want to get wise, you have to go to God, not to the tree of good and evil. He has no knowledge in himself. There is nothing that can satisfy your spiritual need. Your spiritual need can only be satisfied from a God to take. But now the devil comes and says, Eve, your spiritual need will be fulfilled by this fruit. And then when Eve says no, then he comes with the pressing, the pushing button, and he says, Eve, if you don't eat, you remain stupid. Do you have a need for stupidity? No. So now he's pressing, you understand? He's pressing her exactly at a point where she wants to have knowledge and she don't want to miss the point. You see how the sellers do it? They want to sell you something, and then if you don't buy it, they say, oh, you lose the chance of your life. Because it's only now reduced. It's only now in sale. Don't lose the chance. Because they know exactly we cannot say no to loss, to gain. So we have to go for it. So the serpent says to Eve, eat, Eve. And if you do not eat, you have a loss. So, yeah. And now tell me, why did Eve eat? Why did Eve eat? Did she eat because her need was forcing her to eat? Was curiosity the point why she ate? Are you with me? What was the only thing why Eve eat? I tell you, it was not her curiosity that made her eat. It was not her need that made her eat. That was just a trigger, so to say. Why did she eat? What do you need to do before you do something? Before you do something, you need to trust in the information that you do. So why did Eve eat? She trusted that the devil says the truth. And what did she do with God? She mistrusted God, because if you have two things, the one says gain is not to eat, the other says gain is to eat, what do you have for a choice? What do you have for a choice? The only choice you have is who is right. Eve didn't go for the loss when she ate. She went for the gain. But she believed that the gain is the opposite what God says is the loss. So she mistrusted God and believed the devil. So Eve's problem was trust. Because every action we will see in the heart, before we take a decision, we must trust the information. You cannot take any decision without trusting where the information comes from. Trust is the very first thing in your heart before you act. It's trust. Eve mistrusted God and trusted the serpent for her gain, for her satisfying of her need. And so she was changed in her heart. But let's come to Adam. The serpent doesn't come to Adam, it's Eve that comes to Adam. And what is the temptation? Eve comes very happy. Can't she come happy? Yeah, she's very happy. She thinks she's in the highest sphere. She brings all the fruit with her. And she's in her fullest beauty. And you know, women, when they are beauty, are they attractive to men? Yes. And then they come in their fullest beauty and her tongue is loose. And she says, Adam, I just found the fountain of knowledge. And Adam says, what have you done, Eve? Adam immediately recognizes that Eve is into trouble. She ate from the fruit that God says do not eat. So, where is Adam tempted? On which side? The yes or the no side? He is tempted on the no side because what does he not want? To lose Eve. You see, that's his need. He's not tempted with curiosity. In this case, he's just tempted and said, oh, if God is right, I have lost Eve. And now he needs to, what to do? To judge who is right. Eve or God. If Adam would have been convinced in his heart and in his conscious will that to eat from the tree is loss, would he ever be able to eat? No. He would have taken Eve at his hand and says, let's go to Father to see what we have to do. How do we fix the problem? But Adam, looking into Eve, hearing her words, seeing her beauty, looking that she's so well, even though she ate the fruit in front of him, he comes into doubt. Maybe Eve is right. Maybe Eve is right, and Adam does not eat from the tree, from the fruit, because he does not want to lose Eve. That's just the trigger of it. He eats from that fruit because he believes his wife is right and God is wrong. That's why he eats. The same thing like Eve eat because she thinks she will satisfy her needs. When she eats that, Adam believes his wife instead of God. And then the change is happening. And since then, before that, they were living with the true eye. And then the place of the true eye took the evil eye. And we will see tomorrow night what the evil eye is. And you will be surprised what the evil eye has and why it thinketh something in practical things that is totally untrue. And that is the question that we will see is, who am I? And the motivation of the heart, the evil eye is the motivation. And we will see what that means, how we were changed by this. Because I could understand that all human beings have inherited the evil eye. Because this evil eye makes us sick. The evil eye is the cause for most diseases. And that will match perfectly with what the Bible says, that sin is the cause of disease. And we'll see that the evil eye is contrary to the law of life. And we'll see that here in this eye exactly is the 10 Commandments. And it will open our eyes and we will see the difference. And then I hope that we will understand the process better than ever before. So we received by birth an evil eye that is subconscious. By grace we can see the truth, but we cannot do it. You see, I don't want to get angry anymore. Why do I still get? At certain points, of course, I learned a lot of things. There are no personal laws anymore. So when they hit me, nothing happens. I know that's not a personal loss. Why should I get angry? But there are things I still have not fixed in my heart, because the fixing is a process, and I am falling into temptation of getting angry. And you know who suffers then? My stomach. My stomach is my ringing bell in my life. And I hate stomach pain. I hate it, but on the other hand, I love it. And I finish up with a story that happened a few years ago. And my wife, since we travel, we had to go to the airplane the next day to leave. And I said, we have to leave at 7 o'clock in the morning to reach the airport and go on. And at 7 o'clock, I come into the bedroom to take the suitcase of my wife. And I find her in the midst of packing. I mean, she just was kneeling on the suitcase. Some stuff was out of the suitcase, hanging out of it. And she tried to close it. And with a very, I could say, non-guilty voice, she said, "Honey, can you please help me?" Now, if she would have asked me that a half an hour earlier, I would have just said yes, no problem. But when you asked me in the time when we have to leave the house, then my whole love comes out. Yes? The more I approach that suitcase, there was an attraction there that made a pressure in me. I could hardly resist, and I knew it's wrong, but I could not abstain. There was a magic thing in that suitcase. And so I just said a little word, I didn't, like the volcano, The volcano can also rise just a little bit. It's still a volcano, I just said to her, "Do you need so much stuff?" No, that's a good question, is it? And since I was so under pressure, I left the room and I said, I had to go out and pray. I said, "Lord, help me, I die. I know this pressure, I have no control over it." So I put my suitcase in the car and I waited. I calculated with the Lord the time, and He assured me we still have time, so we will make it. So I got some peace. But then I went back into the room when she called me and said, "The suitcase is ready." Okay, very happy. Go in, take the suitcase, bring it in the car and come back. And it would be nice if a woman has just a suitcase. And some of them have other stuff too to take. And my wife is that kind of a person that likes to have a few cases with her. And they have to be packed as well. So it's not over. So I'm getting again into the same crisis. And again, when you are in the crisis, you talk. But how do you talk? You can say the nicest words, but your voice betrays you, because your voice is not under the control of the will. It's under the control of the heart. Every muscle, you must know, in his tension is not controlled by the will. You can move this by the will. But the tension of that muscle, if it hurts you, is controlled by your heart, by the gain or by the loss. So, in that moment, I say something to my wife. And it was many years of marriage. I said, after 30 years of marriage, it was 3 years ago. I said, after 30 years of marriage, when do you want to learn it to be at the right time? And that moment I said that sentence, there came another thought to me. It says, and when do you learn after 30 years to not get upset on it? And that thought just enlightened me and said, the problem is who? My heart. My heart deceives me, thinking that my wife makes me what? Lose the plane. Can she do that? No, of course not. I could have jumped in the car at 7 o'clock and left to the airport. Could I? I could have done it, could I? And I would have no problem. But you see, you make yourself dependent. And then the other one brings you into loss, and you can say no to that loss. You lose your no, and then you get angry. And I went into mission field. We went that weekend to Romania. My wife stayed there, but I came home and I left to Asia for 3 weeks to do seminar, health, and see patients. And I was there in Yangon, and I was sick to my stomach. And when I get angry, there is the nerve, the vagus goes straight from the cortex to the stomach. And when I get angry, my stomach gets hurt. And that hurt needs to heal about 3 to 4, sometimes 6 weeks. And it's like a knife that goes through your body. And I resist to it. I don't take medication if I don't need to. I just resist to it. And I tell you, the pain does something that changes your mind. And I lay down there in bed at a hotel in the afternoon, and it's now 3 weeks later when things happen. I say, Lord, I confessed my sin immediately. Because I immediately confessed that I was wrong when I perceived that I have not learned to not get angry when another makes a mistake or when other has a weakness. And you see, you go in some places, there are certain weaknesses in some cultures. And in the Romanian culture, one of the weaknesses is they are late. Not all, but most of them. It's a cultural thing. So, with the German, they're almost always, on time, a little bit earlier. Because that's how they do it. And so there's cultural things. The one are good, yeah. But no matter how it is, it doesn't matter if it's right or wrong. It just matters how I relate to it. Do you understand? For my stomach, if my wife is late or not, doesn't matter. It's only how I react to it. And I'm laying there and I pray to God and say, Lord, I confessed it. Why does it need to hurt so long and so much? And the thought that came to me after I put this question to my Lord was that you might not forget. And I tell you, I just was very happy for that response. Because every time, now that I am planning to travel somewhere, I am very careful. Because not only that I don't want to get stomach pain, because I want to enjoy food. I so like food. And when I'm in Asia, I like the food there, and now I have this pain and I cannot enjoy it. And so I'm getting more careful, because you see, when you don't have a result for what you do wrong, you forget your wrongdoing, do you? And you are not watchful again in what you're doing. And so I'm very glad for my stomach pain, even though I hate it. It's so terrible sometimes. But I say, Lord, you would never get to my heart to help me see the deception of it. I would still remain in my stubbornness and think I'm right while I am wrong. I might be right with punctuality, but I'm wrong in my action. So in your will, you might have the right of the rights, but in your heart, you might be from the devil. That's the problem that we have to understand. We are tempted with good things to do evil. and we don't even realize it. Because we are so convinced that we are right. And so we go on into strife and into angriness, and we have no idea that we destroy our nervous system because it was not made for those kind of thoughts. What would I have done if I could at that moment? Would I have forced my wife to be punctual? Would I? Yes or no? No, in that moment when she was not ready, what would I have done with her? Yeah? We all, with our evil heart, would have forced things. But thank God that people are allowed to be unpunctual. Yes or no? Thank God that people are allowed to do wrong, to test us, if we are still loving to them. Because if we are still loving, all is fine. We have control. But if they're wrong and we are not loving, we are more wrong than they are. Can you follow that? So we will go tomorrow deep into this study. What do a man thinketh of himself who he is? That's why he relates to others in this, with this evil eye, with this measurement that is contrary to life and destroys life. So I'm looking forward to that study tomorrow night. Are there questions, or shall we have the music first? And we have the music first, and if there are questions, I'm happy to answer them.